Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining this evening for the Vigil of Sabah. Just before we begin this, the Vigil, I would just like to inform you all that we are recording this Zoom session. So if you wish not to be recorded, you are welcome to turn your camera off. Also, before we begin, I would just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and recognising the tangata whenua of New Zealand for their continuing connection to the land, water and culture. We pay our respect to the elders past and present and the emerging. I would just like to let you all know the organisation that I work for. So my name is Arisha Chandra and I'm the National Youth Coordinator of a not-for-profit organisation called Shakti. Shakti is a national not-for-profit organisation led by and for migrant and refugee women. The organisation was founded by 8 ethnic women in Auckland in New Zealand in 1995. The support group was set up originally for ethnic women to overcome the barriers that come with migration and intergenerational bonds of cultural oppression. Over the last 25 years, Shakti has grown from the confines of one tiny room to an international organisation with offices based in Melbourne and Sydney. We're specialised in the area of women's development, empowerment, and domestic violence intervention, prevention and awareness. And we are recognised as a specialist provider for culturally competent services to women and children of Asian, African and Middle East So today we have all been brought here together because a life of a young woman was taken away at the hands of a global pandemic called gender-based violence. On an early Wednesday morning, Australia had its 45th victim to murder. 23-year-old Sabah's life was tragically taken away. Shakti Australia and New Zealand had been shaken to its core. As an ethnic organisation with many members of the team being from the Bangladeshi community, we could not comprehend and were deeply saddened that we lost another woman at the fault of gender-based violence and patriarchy. This evening, we do not want the life of Sabah to be forgotten. She was described as a spontaneous woman, and at 23, she had a whole life to look forward to. I would like to wish you all a warm welcome and to thank Sabah's family who have joined us today. Her niece Faith, her father Sohan, her 2 brothers Kias and Tahim, her sisters Natasha, Shatina and Sanam. I would like to invite you all, if you do have candles with you, to please light them now and to join me for a 1 minute of silence. I would now like to invite Fariba. Fariba is originally from Iran. She was also one of the founding members of Shakti New Zealand and Shakti Australia, and she now currently works as a Shakti New South Wales administrator. She will be conducting the welcoming prayer.
Welcome everyone. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Verily we belong to him and to him do we return. Hello and good evening, everyone. First and foremost, our deep and sincere condolences goes out to the family of Sabah Hafiz and her family that has been going through so much pain over the last week. And we hope by holding this vigil, we can support them and show them that they are not alone. Please know that we are here for you and will do our best to support you during this most difficult time. The Almighty has created men and women as equal so that they live together peacefully and to build a better world together. So we are all responsible for the well-being and safety of everyone around us. Therefore, during this complicated time, we need to support each other more and become closer community by looking out for each other and provide the space to share our pain together. We hope by holding this vigil, we can play a small part in raising more awareness about this tragedy and the pain that it has caused so many people, and continue our conversation on how to stand up this injustice so it does not happen again. I am sad that I cannot say a tragedy like this will never happen again. But I hope at least as we raise more awareness of this issue, that sometimes in the next few years, we can confidently say never again. And that we can eliminate this disease of domestic violence from our community. I leave you with that hope and hope that Sabah will be supporting us in this journey from a very blessed place. May she rest in peace and let's never forget her pain. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciated all your support.
Thank you, Fariba. I would now like to invite Faith, Sabah's niece, to say a few words.
Hear us?
Yeah.
Perfect. Just want to firstly thank on behalf of Sabah's family for everyone that's joining in and playing their part. We really appreciate the support. I just want to start off with a few words for Sabah. Just off the top of my head, she was my auntie. She was 23 years young, and I'm currently 18, and she was more like a friend than an auntie. Since I was a baby, I'd grown up with her, played with her, and then when I was a teenager, we started hanging out a lot more. So it took a huge toll on everyone and on me. The fact that this happened, you never think it's going to happen, especially with how smart she was and kind she is and her heart for others. She just didn't deserve this. Nobody deserves this, but Sabah did deserve this. And she's had a pretty tough walk of life as well. So I just pray that she's in heaven. But I did write a little speech. Just one of the things was, walking into the morgue and seeing Sabah laying there. It was my mom and my auntie and me. We went there just to love on her and be there for her. I just wondered, what didn't I do? What could I have done? How could I have helped? I was one of her safe places to confide in feelings with. There was many of us, but I was one of them as well. And it's just a repeating question: how come she didn't come to me? How come I couldn't do anything? And it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart that she was so reachable, but still just couldn't get to her. It took a few discussions and a long, hard think in the shower to recognise that, you know, unfortunately, no matter how hard we would have tried, she didn't know how loved and worthy she was. She put her worth into a disgusting, drug-absorbed, emotionally draining, abusive male named Adam, who unfortunately took her life, in which she fell for manipulation, which many women do, as she was in love. And here I stand for men being educated on how to treat women, and from the day that they're born, and I stand for women being educated on their worth and how to respect themselves. In today's world where gender stereotypes, everyday sexism and rape culture are a commonplace, violence against women is still not receiving the attention it deserves or needs. Many see violence against women as a figure or a statistic, shocked by it, but not believing it could happen to them or people they know, just like us. We did not think that such a tragedy would happen to our Sabah. Sorry, I'm shaking. However, violence against women needs to be discussed because at least one woman dies a week as a result of domestic violence. And in the past decade, gender-based violence has made up for more deaths, illnesses, and injuries than cancer, traffic injuries, and malaria in women collectively. And that's a tragedy. The fact that 30%, that's 1 out of every 3 women in the world, have experienced sexual harassment at some point in their life. I don't know about you, but that is just horrifying, and I'm just sick to my stomach. I feel one strategy to diminish violence against women is to inform people about it. That's why we're here telling the story, and thank you everyone for being here. Understanding what is normal and abnormal in a relationship, regardless of the level of intimacy, is important. Your children need to learn how to partake in healthy and respectful relationships from a young age. By watching their parents and other relationships, children copy what they see and apply it into their own lives.
Sorry, Christine. Sorry, Faith, you've just gone on mute.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Sorry, where is it? Unfortunately, there are numerous representations of women that are favourable in our society where women are supposedly equal. By changing typical gender representations, women are more likely to be seen as human beings rather as sexual objects. Ad campaigns, TV shows, leaders in positions of power, and social media all have the ability to change perceptions surrounding women. And that doesn't just go to them, it goes to us. On social media, we all have a Facebook account, an Instagram account. Why aren't we posting more about it? The stigma surrounding violence against women needs to be lifted. Instead of blaming the victim, the focus should be more on teaching boys and men the right behaviours. You shouldn't be asking women to avoid violence. Why is it our fault? Educate men not to commit it in the first place, and this can only be done by bringing the issue to the public's view. Directing a program specifically at boys would also be extremely beneficial, as generally men who are the instigators of violence against women. Programs such as White Ribbon, which is set up and being run by men, is one example of an organisation helping boys and young men to understand the implications and effects of abuse, as well as how they can prevent violence against women in their own lives. So educating boys is so important, because if they understand what constitutes a respectful, healthy relationship, then they are able to treat girls and women properly. All in all, everything I've said, you know, Sabah was precious. Women are precious. Sabah was loved, and us women are loved. We deserve respect. Sabah deserved respect, and we should be respecting ourselves so we don't get in positions like that. The most important thing for us women to do in our life time is to just keep on working on ourselves. Love yourself enough to say no to domestic violence and walk away. And others out there that have boys or just children in general, please, please, please raise awareness and raise your sons with integrity and respect, and let them be the change that us women need. So nobody should suffer like Sabah. No one at all. So yeah, again, I just wanted to say thank you, and nobody deserves this, but it breaks us. It should just really click with us that we need to bring more awareness to it, because women are vulnerable, and
the last thing we want to see is another family go through what we've had to go through is really, really horrific as a family. To watch your baby sister or your auntie in such a devastating state. It's just so wrong on every level, and we just love to see a world that's rid of that completely.
Yeah. And one thing that's already carried out a lot across social media is "Are you okay?" And that "Are you okay?" that stigma is around health issues. But I feel like someone told me it was at the funeral, the sheikh was saying, I dare you to call 10 people out of your contacts, whoever it is, 10 people that you don't normally talk to, and just ask, are they okay? Because that could save a life. Because I guarantee if I had have asked if Sabah was okay, then she definitely would have said something, and that's one of my biggest regrets. So just definitely ask. Yeah, thank you. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Faye. I would now like to invite Farida Sultana to say a few words. Farida is one of the founding members of Shakti New Zealand, and she's also originally from Bangladesh.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining, and I really appreciate Sabah's family being here today and speaking. And I have no words to express after hearing you and you being here and trying to raise awareness for your only 23 years old auntie who had long life ahead, and someone just cut her life short. That's not acceptable, all level. I lost my auntie, and that was 50 years back or 60 years back. And I saw my mom grieving for 45 years, losing her sister. And this was in Bangladesh. You can still make sense out of it and say 50, 60 years back, and it was in Bangladesh. We are part of third world country, but this is in Australia. And Sabah is third or fourth woman last 5 years from Bangladeshi community that lost because of domestic violence. So other families. 2020 began with us losing one of Fiji Indian women in New Zealand. That means it just goes on, and all we need to do, come together, as Sabah's niece was saying, ask, are you okay? Look after each other. Do not put women down because they go through domestic violence. Don't stigmatize women. It needs to be, ask the abuser, ask the man, ask them, what are you doing? And I'm also asking other men from not only Bangladeshi community, if this visual will be recorded, if we are able to put that in social media, ask your friend, brother, father, what are you doing? This is wrong. This is not acceptable. There is so much having law having police, having legal system can help, but we all need to play a part in the community. And especially as an immigrant to Australia and New Zealand, we came to live here with our children. Our children go to the school, they go to university, they study with mainstream young people. They will fall in love, they will marry. They will get married, and there is nothing as a parents we can do except supporting them through this process. There would be interreligious marriage, there will be intercultural marriage, because we left our country to integrate in Australia and New Zealand. As a parents, we need to accept that and see how we can support our children, how we can keep the door open regardless of whatever happens. Our children can come back to us. And as the parents, we need to be there, and that's our responsibility. As a woman, and as being a Bangladeshi, my call also to a Bangladeshi community in Australia and New Zealand, we need to learn to respect our women. Women are the backbone of the family, and intergenerationally, what happened to our women death was part of just a statistic, reading newspaper or being part of the news. But we need to realize there's somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's mother. And we cannot just continue a step back in Bangladesh, in Australia, New Zealand, or globally, and let this continue. Working in the domestic violence area for over 25 years, and me being one of the victims who survived, my call to everyone, we all need to come together and support our families, our sisters, our mothers, our aunties. Then we don't lose them like Sabah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Farida. I would now like to invite Zara just to say a few words. She's from Shakti Melbourne.
Hi, everybody. My name is Zara Fatima. I would like to first take this opportunity and offer my deep condolences to Sabah's family and thank Faith for speaking on the family's behalf. I am Zara Fatima, a social worker in marketing and communications for Shakti Australia. We are a non-profit community organization with a regional, national, and international focus. We specialize in the areas of women's development, empowerment, and domestic violence intervention, prevention, and awareness program. We are also a specialist provider of culturally competent support service for women, children, and families of Asian, African, and Middle Eastern origin. Shakti, meaning strength, works towards having a world where women and children are empowered to live a life of dignity, free from fear and violence, and are able to exercise their rights, choices, and responsibilities. In Victoria, our services include crisis helpline, case management, and counseling. We offer free of cost crisis helpline from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Please feel free to call us on 1-800-SHAKTI, that is 1-800-742-584. We also offer holistic case management model, and we offer free counseling service that is trauma-based and narrative therapy-based. We also deliver a range of community development projects for community education in the different areas of Victoria. We also have offices in New South Wales, where we do outreach and home-based case management support to facilitate integration and independence. In New South Wales, we also do linkages with education institutions, government agencies such as Centrelink to facilitate employment, higher education, and eventual resettlement into the community. We are also in the process of providing our own safe accommodation in New South Wales for migrant and refugee women, victims of domestic violence. Also, every Friday during COVID-19, we were able to give food packs to the community by liaising with the Auburn Council. You can find all of this information on our website, shakti.org.au. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I would now like to invite Ramneek to say a few words. Ramnik is also from Shakti Melbourne. Sorry, it seems Ramnik is not here yet. I would like to invite Senator Marine Faruqi to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Arisha, and hello everyone. I'm with you from Nanawal and Namri country, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of that land and pay my respects to their elders past and present. This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So thank you for coming together tonight for this vigil for Sabah Hafiz. It's such a sad, sorrow-filled occasion. And I really appreciate Faith and Christine, you being here, and for those really wise words. I mean, I guess we can't even feel a little bit of what you are feeling, but my heart and my love and my support is there for you. And thank you, Shakti, as well, for bringing us all together tonight. You know, violence against women, as we know, is pretty epidemic levels in our country. You know, every year we count the numbers, and every year they are distressingly high. Last year, 63 women were killed, mostly by men known to them. This year, the year before, it was 53, and so far this year, 40 women have already been killed by violence. And your Sabah Hafiz is one of those 40 women that we have lost to gender-based violence this year. And I really wish that I did not know her name or the name of the other 39 women for the reason that I do. You know, women whose faces I wish I had never seen on the news. It is because their lives were brutally cut short and for their tragic end that we know who they are. And that should never have been the case. According to Destroy the Joint's incredibly important work, and very difficult work, I have to say, when they count dead women in Australia. These women ranged in ages from 18 to 69, and they came from all corners of Australia. They're not just numbers, you know, they were real people with real lives, real passions and dreams, like the rest of us here tonight. And they had every right to live their lives free from violence and abuse. And for all the statistics that we do have, we know that the true extent of violence against women actually remains hidden. Domestic violence incident is reported to police on average every 2 minutes in Australia. And for every woman who comes forward to make a report, there are dozens who remain in the shadows, who aren't even able to come forward. And victims who do reach out rely on a system that is desperately underfunded and overstretched. When I talk to the frontline workers in domestic violence, they tell me of the desperate shortage of space in refuges. Too often they have to turn women away or ask them to leave the refuge before they're ready because they just don't have enough space. And this is at a time when women, some with their children in tow, have taken the brave step to walk away from violence. And it's a dangerous time for them. And I think the very least that governments can do is to provide a safe place and much needed support at this time. But sadly, as we all know, violence and abuse against women happens because of the vast inequalities between genders. It happens because of misogyny and a pretty oppressive patriarchal system that we live under. This kind of violence happens repeatedly because there are apologists for toxic masculinity. You know, this terrorism, and it is terrorism, it happens because the police and the justice system do not believe women, they victim blame, and they try to justify the murders. It happens because some in the media try and minimize the violence and portray the perpetrators as equally suffering. It happens because, as Jess Hill tells us, that some of the most frightening experiences of domestic violence are not even captured on a charge sheet or understood by a judge. It happens because domestic violence victims on temporary visas are trapped in dangerous situations because they're unable to access crucial support. And the coronavirus pandemic really has exacerbated their plight. We also know that during COVID-19, reports of violence against women across the world have increased. This happens because governments refuse to change the system that fails women every single day. You know, I grew up in Pakistan, and growing up there, I imagined that developed countries like Australia would already have achieved equality in every sphere of life. That's obviously a view that was a pretty narrow worldview, and that was marred by crude generalizations and a narrative which filtered through to me in Lahore. I now know that the story of gender-based violence is a pretty universal story about the pervasiveness and the sticking power of inequality. But you know, what unites us as well is feminism and the courage to fight back. So what matters going forward is purposeful solidarity. And I know more than most the power of patriarchy in silencing women. But more important than that, I know the immense capacity of women to change lives and save lives. I saw the matriarchs in my family working together with other women from across the board, listening to each other, believing each other. I heard women around me talk about patriarchy and what they did to subvert it. There was an unmatched camaraderie amongst the women around me when I was growing up. They relied on each other in ways they banked on no one else. And it was their relationships that were indispensable, profound, and powerful. And I think going forward, that is exactly what we need. We must fight for the right of all women to see and to feel safe and to be safe, no matter where they live, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what they're doing or what they're wearing. In February this year, we saw the indelible horror and drowning sorrow of what was done to Hannah Clark and her 3 children. That was rightly much outrage displayed by everyone, including government MPs, ministers, and the Prime Minister. Today, we're mourning the death of Sabah Hafiz, and in between, 30 more women have been killed. So I have to say that words are not enough. We need action to end this violence. We need once and for all to fix the system that fails women again and again. And governments have the power to fix that system. For far too long, impunity, silence, and stigma have allowed gender-based violence to escalate. And we should say no more. We must do everything we can to change a culture of gender-based violence and control that is fueled by patriarchy, power, and privilege. So it's time to be unashamedly bold and fight to not only defend.
Thank you so much, Senator Marine Faruqi. I would now like to invite Matthew from Shakti Sydney to read a letter on behalf of Honourable Mark Stevens as the Minister for Prevention of Domestic Violence.
Hi everyone, my name is on behalf of Shakti New South Wales. Let me thank each and every one of you for being here and attending the vigil for Sabah and many more who are like her, who has lost their life. So this is a letter from Member of Parliament New South Wales, Mark Speakman. He is the Attorney General and Minister for Prevention of Domestic Violence as well. Thank you for the kind invitation to attend your vigil for Sabah this evening. This candlelight vigil, by its own definition and by your intention in coming together, is a remembrance. We are brought together by the grief and loss we all feel at an event so shocking, and all the more so for its senselessness and horror. The last 2 weeks have been a terrible reminder that for far too many women in our community, home is not the safe haven of love and sanctuary that it should be, one that we all have the right to take for granted. The man who police allege killed Sabah Hafiz in the early morning of Wednesday, 14th October 2020, was her husband. Sabah's life of just 23 years had its promise cut short. A life full of enterprise, energy, and love for her family and friends. In holding this vigil, in trying to make sense of the events of that early morning, in remembering this bright young person, we hope that through grief, anger, and even perhaps a sense of our own personal vulnerability, something positive can come from such an event. As an ordinary member of the community, I was shocked and horrified to hear about Sabah. As a member of a parliament, I hold a deep sense of responsibility and duty to make sense of such events, and in doing so, act to try to make our communities and our homes the safe place they should be. Too many men in our community choose to use violence against their partners. It is not excusable. It can have utterly devastating consequences. It toughens my resolve to work harder and with you all to end the scourge of domestic violence. My thoughts and prayers are with you all this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Machu. Now I'd like to invite Ramneek from Shakti Melbourne to say a few words.
Hello, I am Ramneek from Shakti Melbourne. And this year has been difficult for us all, but it has presented challenges, particularly for those women who have no family support and have experienced isolation. Our women were able to reach us through our 24 hours crisis call service, which is 1800 Shakti. Our services remain open to the community, and we are very proud of our professional team, including social worker and a registered counselor, who are always there to provide emotional support to women in need. We have also organized mental health and well-being workshops at this difficult time, collaborating with other professionals and other services to manage self-care needed during stay-at-home restrictions across Victoria. We are also in process of setting up a food bank. We appreciate your support because our women and children need your support. Shakti Australia is available on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Please feel free to visit us on our website www.shakti.org.au. Thank you for joining us tonight and looking forward for your support. Together, we can end domestic violence. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ramneek. I would now like to invite Asad, who is a chairperson of the South Australian Bangladeshi community, to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammad Asaduzzaman. I'm chairperson of South Australian Bangladeshi Community Association, SABCA. Thanks Shakti Australia for organizing that event for Sabah Hafiz. Gender-based violence is not only an issue in Australia, but it's a global issue, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic time. That issue is actually much larger than it was before. As a consequence, domestic violence is escalating. Recently in Sydney, Bangladeshi origin Sabah Hafiz lost her life in domestic violence, and she was just only 23 years old. On behalf of South Australian Bangladeshi Community Association, SABCA, we are expressing our deepest condolence to her family. Our prayer and thoughts are with the deceased family. Apparently, Sabah was not the only victim of domestic violence in Australia this year. She is the 45th woman who died in domestic violence this year, where several hundreds more women considered vulnerable and at risk of domestic violence. That's a very, very alarming picture. Looks like every week we are losing one woman in domestic violence. Due to COVID-19 impact in economy and job market, there is a rising threat of increased domestic violence. And for that, we need to wake up now and need to be vigilant to help each other. And more importantly, we need to work together to stop it now. So we need to say no to the domestic violence. Friends, domestic violence and aggressive behavior towards women are not acceptable or justifiable in any means. The foundation of a family or a partnership is respect, love, and care. Violence and aggressive behavior can't go with love and respect. If someone loves you, they can't make you cry. Similarly, if you love somebody, you can't be aggressive to them. So think about your attitude and behavior towards your wife or partner now. Be respectful and caring to your partner. Believe me, nothing can be more important than your family. Nothing. Domestic violence will not only destroy your relationship with your wife or partner, it will badly impact the psychological well-being of your kids. If you are a father, you know how much you love your children, especially if you have a daughter. If you have a daughter, I know you are treating her like a princess. Every daughter is a princess to her dad. Will you accept violent behavior or aggressive behavior to your daughter? I know the answer. It is a big no from you, right? Think about your wife or partner. She is also a daughter of a dad, a princess too. More importantly, she is the mother of your kids. So on behalf of Sabka, I would like to convey that message. We are against any domestic violence, and we would like to work with any organization to raise awareness against domestic violence. We don't want to lose any more life like Sabah Hafiz. If you are a victim of a domestic violence, or if you know someone who is victim of domestic violence, please do not feel alone or helpless. Helps are available. This is Australia, and many organizations, including government, are working against domestic violence. There are many organizations like White Ribbon Australia, Respect, Shakti Australia, and so many. So just think about, realize your situation, and reach out for help. Domestic violence helpline is 1-800 65 64 63. 1-800 respect. Lifeline is 131114. Anyone who is actually joining in this event from South Australia, there are some South Australian helpline I'm actually mentioning here as well. So domestic violence gateway 1-800 800 098. Youth gateway 1-800 807 364. Women's Legal Help Service South Australia 8221 5563. So we can, our message is, we are not actually, you are not alone. Help is there. Love yourself, stand up for your dignity, and more importantly, to save your life. Usually this kind of situation keep going wrong, and finally it's end tragically. So act on time, help yourself, ask for help, ask for legal advice, and more importantly, try to actually create social awareness, try to actually join with any movement which is actually working for women's right, and help yourself, help other women who is in danger. From Sabka, we are with you guys. Again, our condolences to the family of Sabah Hafiz, and thanks everyone for joining this event.
Thank you, Asad. I would now like to invite Hayley Foster. She is the CEO of Women's Safety New South Wales and a supporter of Shakti Australia New Zealand.
Thank you, Arisha, and thanks everyone for having me and for Shakti for holding this. I would like to acknowledge that I too am on Aboriginal land on the Gadigal country of the Eora Nation. To Natasha, Faith and Sabah's family, our very deepest condolences for your devastating loss, and also to Shakti and the Bangladeshi community. We're so sorry. Sorry to hear of your loss. This is also devastating news for those of us on the front line and those who are charged with advocating with government for the changes that we need to see to reduce violence against women and their children. Yet again, we feel as though we've failed her, failed Sabah and yourselves as her family and community. Look, we cannot accept deaths like Sabah's as inevitable, because it's not, as we've heard from the speakers today. There are so many changes that we can be making to prevent atrocities such as this one. Shakti New South Wales and Shakti Australia and New Zealand can tell you about a number of these things that we need to see change. Shakti New South Wales talk about the need for more emergency accommodation, so women like Sabah have actually somewhere to go to seek safety. They talk about the need for community education and cultural leadership in understanding the nature of domestic and family violence and coercive control, and addressing ingrained attitudes about the roles of women, so that women in Sabah's situation know that they can always reach out for support without judgment or victim blaming. Shakti talk about the need for education in schools and workplaces and community institutions, and for campaigns which tackle the root causes of violence against women and let people know when, where and how to access support right across the community. And other changes are important too, and we've heard some of those today as well. We need to address our laws, and we need to address the way in which we enforce our laws. We need to ensure women are afforded genuine options for achieving safety, for living independently after experiencing violence and abuse. And that means, like Marine Faruqi was saying, addressing the structural gender inequalities, as well as Farida and others. Most of all, we need to awaken the consciousness of those in positions of power and responsibility to properly invest in the critical specialist support services women and children need to achieve safety. Like Marine Faruqi has said, governments do have the power to make these changes, and they have the power to make them now. We cannot stop the cycle of violence if we don't have the specialist services available to support women and children in their long and windy journey to safety and recovery. We simply need to invest in them. Sabah and Sabah's family, we are so sorry that we failed you, but know that we will continue to strive for a safer, more just world where women and girls like Sabah can be free from violence. Thanks everyone for listening, and to Shakti New South Wales for hosting this very important event.
Thank you so much, Hayley. I would now like to invite Matthew to say a few words. He was the local councillor for the Greater Dandenong on between 2012 to 2020. Matthew?
Thank you, and thank you to Australia for allowing me to say Sabah Hafiz. Thank you for all being here tonight. My personal condolences to members of her family who are here tonight. Faith and Christine, you were very brave. The murder of Sabah Hafiz in some ways is unique. Every person brings their own uniqueness to this world. Sabah was a 23-year-old aspiring model of Bangladeshi origin, living in Sydney, married to a young Australian man. But unfortunately, in other ways, she was sadly not unique at all. At the time of her death, as previously mentioned, Sabah was the 45th women murdered in Australia in 2020. 5% are alleged to have been murdered by their intimate partner. Sabah was no different. Murders are the extreme and most final outcome of domestic violence, but domestic violence is much more scarily prevalent. The Australian Institute of Criminology surveyed 15,000 women in May this year and found that 8.2%, almost 1 in 10, had experienced physical violence in the previous 3 months from an intimate partner. And that survey doesn't even ask about emotional abuse, how common this scourge in our society is. As a former local councillor for the City of Greater
Sorry, I think Matthew's Zoom might have cut off. Oh no, he's back on.
Oh, I'm back now. Sorry. Thank you. But I didn't need to look up numbers of scourge in our society. As a former councillor of the City of
Sorry, I think his Zoom cut off again. Maybe we'll come back to Matthew. I would now like to invite Harinder. She is the CEO of the Harman Foundation, and co-founder of the Harman Foundation.
Hello, Shakti, and thank you for bringing everyone together for such a, no one wants to be attending this kind of events when it happens, and nobody wants to know who was Sabah Hafiz. Now we know who was Sabah Hafiz. So it is so unfortunate and tragic. And I have been listening all the speakers here, which you can see everyone is passionate about, everyone's heart is in a shock, and words can't express what happened to Sabah Hafiz. Now, Harman Foundation is no different than Shakti, and we all are trying to look in how we can deal with domestic and family violence, including the government. The government is spending trillions of dollars into this matter, and whether we have been able to reduce in New South Wales, the Premier's priority is to reduce 25% domestic violence this year. Now, have we able to do that? That is a really big question mark. That we are talking about the matters which has been reported to the police, and what about the matters which hasn't been into their attention? Because this is a problem of not just one culture; it is a global problem, and it has grabbed the whole world's attention. Because personally, I pay my tributes to Sabah Hafiz's family, and her family has shared their condolence in a very, very tragic way. But the question comes that what we have done so far to avoid these kind of circumstances, because Harman Foundation has been involved with, not long ago, we did a vigil, similar vigil for late Kamaljit Sidhu, who was tragically murdered in her own home by her intimate partner in her own home. And that was not long ago, it was 20th of May. And I remember when I was delivering the speech on her vigil, and then thinking no more, like I personally or as an organization, Herman Foundation would not be involved or would not see this tragedy happen again. And guess what? It is only maybe 20 kilometers away from what happened to late Kamaljeet, exactly what happened to now Sabah Hafiz. And this saga of tragedies keep on happening. And it wasn't long ago when we were involved with Parvinder Kaur, who was another 10 kilometers away from Kamaljeet, who was still the matter in the court. I can't say it, like, but she was in that situation again. And then in 2020, another 3 murders happened within the range of Kamaljeet's murder in the same area. And then if I go back a little bit more, then another tragedy which we were involved with, Harjeet Kaur, late Harjeet Kaur, in 2017. So the saga of these tragedies keep on happening, and Sabah Hafiz has become the 45th victim of this massive, tragic, and unforgettable circumstances of people. Now, question comes, what we can do. The only thing which I would like to say here that, and I'm agreeing with whatever people have expressed today, definitely I do agree with that, and definitely I would say that we need to do more. The only thing which I can say more than what has been said, that that sometimes we are looking for treatment, and the patient knows about what is exactly wrong with the patient, rather than doctor knows everything. So it means, like, if I compare this, that the here doctors could be in analogy, I can say that doctors could be here government. So government is trying to solve this issue, but my point of view is, my personal point of view is that, do we know exactly our South Asian community? Do we know exactly what their needs are? Do we actually know about where they are coming from when it happens? Do we know that, do our police knows about exactly how to deal with these kind of issues? So that is the question mark. And of course, these kind of forums, we need more. We need to make more awareness in our community. We need to break through the stigma of domestic and family violence. And we need to bring our brothers and fathers and families together, because it is everyone's problem. It is not just gender-based problem, although it is victims are gender-based violence, but it is family and it's community and it's the nation's problem. So Herman Foundation is also offering 24/7 helpline to domestic and family violence across Australia. And we are based in New South Wales, but we have got branches in Melbourne and Adelaide and Brisbane. And we also, I also heard about that there is the Shakti is also advocating that there should be more shelters for South Asian or subcontinental community people, because their needs are so different. So Herman Foundation is also operating a shelter, which is a culturally based, very for those people who can't fit in because of the cultural barriers. They feel more comfortable in these kind of small houses. So we are running all based on donation. We didn't sit and wait for the governments to come on board and tell us that or give us funding. So Herman Foundation is running donation-based, volunteer-based organization with full capacity of offering intervention, prevention, and crisis. And this crisis accommodation we have been running from the last 3 years, and we are determined to keep on running it, even if it is a donation based, because the funding system of the government structure, we may not fit in. We may not be economical as they are looking for, but because we know the clientele needs, we know how much quality and care we need for them. And so if these things can't be looked in, then we will be looking another tragedy. And I hate to say that it will keep on happening around us, and we will be losing another daughter, another sister. And the last thing which I want to add is Shakti. We have been working together with Shakti for so many clienteles has been dealt together, and collaboration, holding hands with each other, with organization. There's no competition, or there's no better or worse organization. Rather, hold as a sisters and brothers, hold organizations hand with each other and deal with this kind of issue, which are a massive, big shame on our as a community, because we haven't been meeting the needs of, and we are not embracing, and we are not holding these people's hands when they really need it. So my condolence to go to Sabah Hafiz family again, and I hate to see this happening again, and our words are, I can't express in my words what I'm feeling now at this moment. Thank you. Thank you, Shakti.
Thank you so much, Harinder. I would now like to invite Veena from Shakti Melbourne to read a poem.
Hello everyone, I'm Veena. I'm counselor at Shakti Melbourne. I've put a few lines together for Sabah. My poem is titled Goodbye Sabah. To Sabah too soon, we bid goodbye. With tears in our eyes, we ask why. Why did she have to live in fear? Why her feelings he could never hear? How can you even call this love? Whenever you want, you punch and shove? How can love ever look like this? Isn't it supposed to be warmth and bliss? Like a bird, she wanted to fly. Tell me, is 23 any age to die? How do we curtail such a demon? Do we stay weak just because we are women? Why can't we too have a voice? Why are we not given a choice? Come on, give us some rights. We are sick and tired of all the frights. Let me live, she must have cried. Perhaps until her last breath had dried. To Sabah too soon, we bid goodbye. With tears in our eyes, we ask, why? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veena. I would now like to open the session. If anybody would like to say a few words, you're more than welcome to.
Is it okay if I may add? Yeah, thanks, Arisha. My name is Rita, and I work at a women's center, Wellsprings for Women in Dandenong. We are supposed to be the most multicultural suburb of Australia, and I think almost every week we receive cases of family violence and domestic violence. And when I heard Sabah's case, I was like, it was just so instant, like for me, because once you read a Muslim name, you just kind of like, oh my God, do I know her? Have I gone to school with her? Does someone know in the community? And you start searching for answers, but really there's just this thing, this deep wound that you feel as a survivor oneself, but also as someone who's working in the community to change that. It's a slow change. everyone's doing their bit, but like what Marine Faruqi said, there is a lot of toxic masculinity that we need to kind of uncondition our men with, and then kind of recondition them with some a bit more healthier relationship values, and have deeper spiritual places where women can feel safe. I am so glad that Shakti Melbourne have had the courage to organize this despite Victorian restrictions and the pandemic. I was not expecting that to happen. So bravo for doing that. And thank you so much for reaching out to everybody, especially you, Zara. You contacted me on Facebook and you said, look, there is something that has happened. And I was just like so sad. And there will be a press release going from the Pakistani community, not just in support of Sabah, but also many women like her, and also several other cases that we've been hearing in the community throughout this year. And we are happy to help Shakti Australia and other organizations, SAPCA and Hayley Foster from Women Safety New South Wales, in any way we can. Thank you so much for doing this, because it makes me feel like that girls like me have hope, and that I can rely on a group of people out in my own South Asian community that would stand up and not take this on and on. So thank you so much, Harinder Kaurji, for being here, and to Veena for reading that beautiful poem. It really is wonderful to see all of you coming together and condemning this. Yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to say a few words? So I guess this brings us to the end of the vigil for Sabah. I would just like to thank you all for taking time out of your evening to attend the Zoom vigil, and I'd really like to thank Sabah's family for attending and for speaking as well. I really don't have any other words apart from my MC notes. But yeah, it's not just another statistic. It's real. It's a real woman, and it's real people. And working in this sector, it never ever gets easier at all. Yeah, sorry. It never gets easier hearing about a death. I've been working with Shakti for about 2 years now, and the countless vigils and funerals I've had to attend have just been heartbreaking. It's really sad to know that this journey is never ending, and for a 23-year-old, a person who's so young to have lost her life. Yeah, thank you so much, Sabah's family, for attending today, and I hope she's resting in peace. I'm happy to leave the Zoom open for a bit if anybody would like to send any messages or anything. But yeah, that brings us to the end.
I think behalf of Shakti New South Wales and Melbourne, I'm really thankful. Thank you so much for all of us. You put the effort and the time. As they mentioned, we have a big aim, and hopefully we need all your support, because we have a plan to go through to safe house, because as we need, as our community, as a lot of women, because as you know, through to pandemic and COVID, we had so many referrals, and we've been struggling to make them put them in safe place. I think all of us, we have to be on the place, get to go through to this big project we look and be appreciated. Whatever you can support us. And then that'd be good for us because we know we have a lot of people around us, they can support Shakti. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for staying. I'll end the session now. And thank you to Sabah's family for coming.